Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Briarpatch. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, I like that intro, the whole thing with Allegra dreaming, because obviously, I'm skipping around a little bit, but the thing at the end with the whole, being chained to your oppressors and stuff like that, my interpretation of that scene is supposed to be the fact is for Allegra, she's always in the back seat, whereas everyone else kind of drives where her life is. Like, obviously, the whole situation with her family, like her parents going down the path they did, it left her kind of being alone. She had to be the one to look after Felicity. So it's always like, it was never like 100% like she felt like she probably was in control in a lot of aspects of her life. Even now, it's like, then it switched over to, Ramirez and Cyrus. They're the ones deciding how fast they go. So it's kind of like still her life is, still kind of being made, choices are being made by other people. And even when it came to Felicity, she had Jean holding her back. And I think it's just like, there's always going to be something like keeping you away, like something keeping you in the back seat of like your own life. That's what I treated that as. Like, I could have been misinterpreting it. I thought that was kind of the clear-cut message of it now in retrospect, but I could be mistaken. Then we had the scene between Jean and Clyde, and it's like, oh, you did a fantastic job. He's like, I'm sorry I didn't kill Spivey. He's like, no, it all worked out in the end. But, oh yeah, here's all your money. But for Jean, it's like, oh, I don't want your money. And Clyde's like, excuse me? He's like, basically, I want a favor from you, because basically he's like, I want my life back. I didn't come here so I could run. I came here, to San Bonifacio, butcher that, sorry, Bonifacio, to get a second chance, and he doesn't want to jeopardize that. Like, because at first I was about to say, what are you running from? But then we kind of get our answer to everything, because he's like, I'm a good cop, which I don't know which way to interpret that. Like, I interpreted it last episode, like, oh, he thinks he's legitimately a good cop, even though you're a hitman for hire. But I think it's that, but he's also like, I'm good at what I do as a cop. But then Clyde was like, no, let me set you straight. You were always a crooked cop. You owed a debt to the mob. The mob paid it off to me, and so you indirectly owe me a favor. So that's why this whole situation came. I was like, oh, so I guess that's the New Start situation. He was trying to get away from the mafia. You were kind of his way to get away, and it's like, oh, okay. So because that made me wonder, like, were you actually at one point in time a good cop? Maybe he actually was. But it seems at one point he became a dirty cop and he just wanted a fresh start, hence why he's here and everything. But it's like, okay. So I thought that was fascinating. And even the whole situation with Clyde being like, because he's like, yeah, because the fact of the matter is, I gave you all that money and time, and in that year, you didn't do, what did you do with it? You killed Felicity. He's like, the fact that she was up in our business, so I had to kill her. He's like, no. You didn't kill her to clean anything up. That was payback. That was revenge. What was it? The exact wording he used. Because Felicity saw him for who he was. Like, he has this mask up of trying to be this good guy. Felicity saw through that, and just to get back, it was more so than anything. Not just even the Brado stuff. It's like, you saw me for who I was. I can't let anyone see me. So it was more so retribution for that. And so it's like, you don't have to worry about the whole thing of like, no, we're not done, because once you're with me, you're basically stuck working for me forever. And we see him getting tattooed, and it took me a little bit, but I was like, oh, the tattoo on the back of Jake's neck signifies Brado owns you. Basically, that you're his property. You work for him forever and always. Once you work for him once, you're always it. And so, because anytime Jake was talking about anytime Jake was talking about Brado last episode, he kept touching the back of his neck. It's like, that's what that tattoo represents. It's like, that's interesting. I was like, that's fascinating. So, other side of things had Allegra and Jake in the desert, and home dude has them digging their own grave, and he's like, I need to ask you one question, because you get the cigarette, but let me ask you one thing. Why do all this for someone like Jake Spivey? And it's like, yeah, this idiot's made a lot of mistakes, but being my friend isn't one of them. I love, and then like you see like Jake get all sentimental about it. He's like, oh heck, that'll do, Allegra. And it's like, oh, it's kind of this sweet moment, gives her a cigarette and everything. And I love the whole situation of like, it's like, yeah, but because he was like, if I paid him $20, he would kill you right now. Well, not even that. He'd actually bargain me down to $15. And I love him be like, oh, don't worry. Don't be jealous. I'd kill you for free. And the fact of the matter is, he was like, or maybe I give you a knife, because stabbing people in the back is what you do best. He's like, dude, Clyde is never going to be your daddy. He's never going to kind of rub you on the head and tell you how big your pecker is, because it's not. And he's like, you got soft hands, Spike. And he's like, and you're wearing a fanny pack. I was like, I love that that's your insult. But the fact of the matter is, it's like, I forgot, what was it Allegra said? She said something, it's like, don't you know, basically it's like, do you have a light? And he's lighting a cigarette or about to, and he's like, don't you realize that's bad for you? He's like, well, Jake knows. I forgot the wording she said. It was so clever. And then Jake chops off home dude's hand with the shovel, and then they choke him out with the chains, and it's like, holy shit. So while that's happening, they managed to get away and everything. They're in the car. Obviously, she drops the news about Jean being the one that killed Felicity. And for her, that's the main thing. Like, nothing else matters. It's about taking down Jean and nothing else. But he's like, slow down. You're going too fast. And she's like, what did you say? Because of the dream and everything. But it's like, maybe that was foreshadowing, her subconscious trying to tell her something. Like, that metaphor of what that dream meant became a literal thing. Maybe it's just because you're going so fast, you need to take time to kind of, as the episode kind of talks about later on, kind of have your eyes open. You've kind of walked around with your eyes closed the entire time. It's time for you to open your eyes, and like her eyes were still closed, so hence crashing and everything. But luckily they got away. I like that whole situation of when they're like walking and everything, and the conversation comes up about like, you know, this whole situation, because she doesn't actually say what her plans were for Jean, because, you know, Jake is like, I just want to make sure you don't make a mistake like you did 12 years ago. She's like, I went to prison for you. He was like, yeah, but the whole thing was your idea. She's like, no, it was yours. She's like, I never told you to blackmail that senator. And he was like, you didn't have to. You know that I'm the type of person that serves as an excuse for you to do all the bad things that are in that pretty little head of yours. But obviously for Allegra, like, it's still just a thing of like, so much of her life was spent with that whole situation. And obviously because what it comes down to for her, it's like, maybe like she spent so long running away from this town, and now she's actually scared. She's like, what if Felicity thought I was trying to run away from her? Because for her, it's like, you know, she uses that metaphor of like, you know, when something's wrong on the plane, they're like, oh, put an oxygen mask on yourself first, and then secure to help, you know, try to help someone else. Because if you try to help someone else first, you might be disorientated, so it might be a thing of like, you cost both of you your lives, that type of thing. So she says like, that's what she tried to do, like, you know, spare her sister from all this. It's like she ran away hoping that, you know, Felicity wouldn't make the same mistake she did, kind of live her own life. But then, you know, Jake is like, it's okay. Like, honestly, what you did at the end of the day was for you. You saved yourself, you know. And it's kind of like basically trying to tell her it's not your fault that things played out the way they did with Felicity. The fact of the matter is, it's essentially kind of saying like, it's okay to basically have been selfish and wanted to kind of, it was meant to be your out. It wasn't meant to be, you want to make it seem like it was about Felicity, but it was about you wanting to get away and get out of this whole situation. So I thought that was just kind of fascinating. But basically saying like, what happened to Felicity isn't on you, but she's like, it is, because I left her here in this town and everything. So everything that, you know, kind of taking that blame on, like, that's what this has all been about. It's because she blames herself for what happened to Felicity. It's like, if I thought I was doing the right thing, but maybe at the end of the day, I was just doing something for myself, claiming that it was for my sister, you know. And, you know, it's basically him saying like, it's done, Pick. Like, basically you can't do anything about it now. It's done. Like, there's no point kind of wallowing over something you can't change, you know. But obviously for Allegra, she thinks she can't at least make a difference by bringing down all the people responsible for it. I did like that situation of like, she sees a camel in the distance. At first I'm like, why the hell is there a camel? And then I was like, right, the damn zoo. I was like, why do I keep forgetting that's a storyline in the background? I was like, what? I was like, why did I forget about that? It's like, of course, the damn zoo. So they follow the camel, and then we find the person who's been on the radio throughout the season. I'm like, oh, we're about to get revealed. I was like, oh, is this going to be some reveal or something? And then he turns around, I'm like, who the hell is that? Is that supposed to be someone we know? I was like, it doesn't make any. I was like, I don't know. Like, did he pop up in a show before? I was like, I don't recognize him. But it's not until like he says like, oh, I know exactly who you are, Tin Man, when he's talking to Jake. You're living in my house. I was like, the moment he said, I was like, oh, Candy Bar. And then Jake was like, Candy Bar. I was like, holy shit. That's interesting, because I was like, a line in one episode, and I never thought we would have circled back to that. I didn't think it turned into plot relevant stuff, but I guess everything in this show matters. It's one of those things, kind of like, once again, I've made comparisons to this show in Twin Peaks, where it's like everything kind of matters, even though it doesn't seem like it does. It kind of does. So that's just interesting in the grand scheme of things, of like, holy shit. So that's Kenny Bar, and he is a little crazy, but the fact of the matter is he's figured a lot of shit out. For one, he figured out, like, oh yeah, you know that those are two different bombs. She's like, yeah, I know that. How do you know that? He was like, basically explaining like the way the first bomb was kind of sloppy and not really, it was kind of a crime of passion. Second bomb seemed a lot more calculated and stuff like that. And what does that imply? That the second, and Allegra's like, the second bomb was meant to cover up, kind of divert attention away from the first bomb. So I was like, now that's interesting. Right. And now that basically means that whoever was behind the second bomb benefited from this whole situation. So like, who benefited the most from all this is kind of what Allegra's kind of piecing together and stuff. So I thought that was, I was like, oh dude, I'm a big fan of like this mystery shit. I love it, dude. But the fact of the matter is, but everything else he was going on about, like, was kind of way out there. Like, he's like, oh, my parents, that whole sugar business and stuff like that, they might as well have been selling, what was it, like acid or something, he was basically saying. Pulled the metal out of Jake's leg, and was just kind of like, yeah, you'll be all right. Just kind of look, he's like, look at me, you'll be all right. And so basically we also found out that the bombs are based on his design, because it turns out, kind of tying this all together, he let the animals out. I was like, Jesus, because I love, Allegra was like, you, and he was like, don't put me together with the bomber who killed a police officer and stuff, like, well, killed one. We never went back. What's his name? Strucker? We still have never gone back to that dude since, like, his wife tried to leave town and almost crashed leaving town. That's the last instant of that storyline we've ever dealt with. So I'm assuming he's still in the hospital recovering and whatever his situation is, but they've never circled back to that. I guess because in the grand scheme of things, it served its purpose plot-wise of what it was supposed to do, but other than that, it's like, it's not necessary, I think. Maybe that's kind of what it's implying. It could have been anyone, he just happened to be the example of it. Regardless, I just thought that was like a fascinating thing, but I took it as Allegra being like, wait, you're the one who let all the animals out? He took it as like, I'm not, just because I made the bomb and stuff like that, it's like I set the animals free, but look at the camel's here because it wants to be here, not because I'm forcing it to be here. Basically saying that freedom isn't a choice, it's a responsibility or something like that. But then like you have Jake pointing to that thing in the corner, and he's like, wait, is that, and it's that suit, it's basically that one of those like shows. It almost looks like almost like not necessarily a Barney show, but it looks like one of those Barney suits. But you get what I'm trying to say. It seems like it's one of those like mascot shows or something like that. It was been in the background playing on television in a couple episodes. I mean, maybe it played in a lot more, but there's at least like 2 or 3 I know off the top of my head that it kind of played in, I think. But I was like, oh, so is that supposed to insinuate he's the one behind that TV show? Or is that supposed to insinuate it's like, because he talks about, and the fact is, if you find some comfort, like holding on to those chains that kind of bound you before, like you want freedom and you enjoy it, but at the same time, it's kind of nice to have some comforts of that chain again. So I'm like, so is that supposed to imply like you were a part of that show and you took that as kind of a reminder of your past? Or because that reminded you of your past, you bought that outfit? Or like, that's what I don't know how to interpret that. I'm assuming the former and not the latter. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know whether it's like the thing of like he was, whatever the case may be. That was kind of an interesting thing. I'm like, okay, circling a whole bunch of stuff around. But because of all of this, it kind of changed Allegra's perspective on a lot of stuff. And he's like, are your eyes open? And she kind of nods. And he's like, good. Don't eat the kale. That's how they spell Lyme disease. And it's like, okay, you definitely see the tinfoil hat that what's his face was worried about. But they took the bus, got back to town. Jake's like, yeah, we're back to town. Let's lay low, figure things out. But Allegra's like, I'm going to walk because I need to figure some things out. He's like, they're trying to kill us both. He's like, crap. Okay. Allegra's walking through. She's listening to it over and over again. The message from Felicity. It's like, whoever it was she called is the one behind all this. Like, it's like she trusted someone. She wanted out of all this because there was someone she called. She didn't call Allegra, but she called someone else. And that's what led to this whole thing. So it's like, who was it she called saying, meet me in Packing Down? Then she runs across those kids, that one in particular who's got the gun that Clyde gave him a couple episodes ago, and he's trying to scare her, but she walks forward and he's like, let's get out of here. He's like, why aren't you scared? Let's get out of here. Just crazy bitch, crazy bitch. So there's that. One side of things, so much other shit going down at the same time. You have AD showing up looking for Allegra, asking Eve for stuff, and then Eve's not answering. I'm like, why the fuck aren't you talking to him? Like, is it because you don't trust him? I was like, but he's part of the crew. Like, why would you, like, you know that he's connected to Allegra and Spivey, so like, you're working with Spivey. It's like, why aren't you saying anything? And it's like, he's like, do you know about Clyde Brattle? And she's like, Clyde Brattle. He's like, you don't know Clyde Brattle. She's like, I have no idea. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, Eve? And then walks in Jake's lawyer. Now, I don't know if AD, well, because AD obviously is a lawyer too, so he might know exactly who she is. So the moment you see her walk in, it's like, oh, I see how it is. Maybe, like, because he had this look of almost like, oh, I see how it is type of situation. So either that, he probably knows what kind of lawyer she is. So seeing her working for Eve must be like, oh, I know exactly what's kind of going on here. You know, because I think lawyers probably do know other lawyers, but regardless. But the fact that she was there, I was meaning like, you're backstabbing Jake. I'm like, what the hell are you up to, Eve? Like, I was like, I guess, because she's like, yeah, is this all it? Yeah, and his lawyer was like, yep, that's all the paper. I was like, oh, so you're going to try and make all those dealings behind Jake's back? But I was like, how are you going to benefit from that? All of Jake's money's tied up in it, but it won't benefit you because he doesn't have the immunity, so he can't use the money. I was like, I don't get that. But then we see her meet up with Cyrus, and I'm like, okay. So basically, she's going to hand over all that land. She's going to sell it to them. And it's like, you can do whatever you want to with it. All the great stuff that you and your senator can do with it. Like, do whatever you want to with it. Name it after people you love, kind of, or make it into a place after the people you hate. Whatever the case may be. And it was also interesting and very, like, misogynistic of Cyrus to be like, oh yeah, a female, never thought kind of a female police officer could have come up with something like this, be making moves like this. But I like what Eve talks about. She talks about, like, you know, earthquakes. Like, they didn't make buildings in, like, California more sturdy, which I didn't know this. I'm assuming there's truth to this. Not unless it's 100% BS, but I would assume there's truth to it. I was like, huh. I've never thought about it too much, though. Like, the whole earthquake situation. Rather than making the buildings more sturdier, you make them a little more wiggly. In the sense that, like, when the earthquake comes, like, they wiggle and they shake, but it doesn't, like, you know, it kind of are able to kind of shake off a little bit of the earthquakes. And I guess that's what she's kind of considering herself in this regard, kind of like, but whatever the case may be, she strikes a deal with Cyrus, and I'm like, okay, so there's that. AD's meeting up with Cindy, and it's like, oh, like, Allegra found out all this stuff about Eve. Well, had Harold found out all this stuff about Eve. And obviously Cindy's talking about the pillow still smelling like Harold. It's like, oh, can I get that bugging device and stuff like that? She's like, go ahead. Take the encryption software too. I don't have anything to do with it. She's like, what are you about to do with it? He's like, whatever it takes. She's like, you got a fire in you. But if it kind of gets down to your gut, let me know. I'll send you over some milk or something like that to kind of help it out. I was like, oh, Cindy, you're just the sweetest, aren't you? But the fact of the matter is, like, okay, I was like, but then we saw, like, where it was set up, like the deal between Ramirez and Brattle. I was like, it's Felicity's place. I was like, it's got to be bugged. I was like, no, they got all the bugs out of it, or at least Harold got all the bugs, right? I was like, they must have had Harold put them back or something like that. But I, you know, jumping ahead a little bit, I love the twist of, like, no, AD's there bugging the place because he knew ahead of time when the deals were going down. So it's a whole situation of, you know, the Brattle and Ramirez confrontation was kind of interesting because obviously, like, we're trying to figure out what the hell Brattle wants with, like, what is he going to benefit from all of this? And it's like, oh, you know, it's like, oh, what was that thing that he said? And Cyrus was like, he said, you know, he'd take his medicine. It's like, right. But basically, it's, you know, it's like, what are you offering me? You know, it's like this whole Jake situation. Like, Al Namor, it wasn't just Jake or Brattle that benefited. There's actually other people, like, was it like an admiral, like 2 senators? There's a lot of people that benefited from it. Brattle's like, I made them rich and I kept all the receipts. Use them because basically they're his competition in his next election. So it's like he will be able to clear the board with all this. So Brattle's like, all right, do you want to make a deal with that type of situation? I'm like, okay. And, you know, and the entire time, it seemed like even Cyrus seemed like he, like it seems like Cyrus seems like he's so okay with a lot of stuff. But even then, it seemed like he was a little on edge about the whole situation. But it's like, okay. And then, like, you know, as Allegra gets back to her place. AD's waiting. He's like, you need to hear this. And Clyde is talking to Cyrus. At first, I thought it was just a Cyrus thing. Ramirez wasn't in the room because I thought like maybe they had some pre-arranged thing, like Brado and Cyrus actually had worked together before. Like I thought that's where it was setting up. But he's like, oh, about the whole Allegra thing. It's like, no, she's under our control. It's like, yeah, but still, like she doesn't know about our plan, so it'd be kind of okay if she disappears, right? Which I'm like, pretty smart on your part because you're already having her taken care of. So that means that when she does disappear, these two won't be looking for her. In fact, they'll be they're going to be okay with the whole her disappearing thing, that you can make it so that like they'll cover your ass. Like anything you do to Allegra, they'll cover up for it because they'll be like, well, it benefits us to keep you happy and you helping us by getting rid of Allegra. But what surprised me the most, Cyrus being like, wait, what? Are we okay with this? And then it being Ramirez that's like, okay. And it's like, wait, what? Like the fact is, despite kind of being the asshole he is, Cyrus, I guess because Cyrus in his own twisted way kind of cares about Allegra. It's like, yeah, you're kind of forced to do what I want you to do because you're kind of under my thumb, but I look at you as kind of my protege, almost like my child. I don't think Allegra looks at it like that. You're just a dude that kind of like, basically you're one of her oppressors that has her, locked up. But now we see, Ramirez gets, like, it's like we saw, like, I guess you can make, like, from the very beginning, they kind of made it clear that Ramirez kind of wasn't a good guy. The fact is, but to be fair, it's part of the game, the whole, like, making dealings and stuff like that, so it shouldn't come as a surprise, like the whole Brado or Clyde thing. It's like, I mean, obviously we care more about Jake than, like, Jake's done some stupid shit. He's fucked up. But obviously Brado's like the real major bad guy. So it's like, the fact that you're willing to deal with him. But Ramirez is like, nah, he's an opportunist. He's he's ready. He's like, oh, basically we get those names from Clyde, basically send him to jail. Why don't we throw Jake in there too? And then he's like, rather than blackmailing them directly and using this to he's going to use this it's like, why not give them a second chance? Basically tell them to back out of the race, but then for the rest of their lives, they're always going to be like, oh, we have to do whatever he says because he has this dirt on us. So, and like I said, you've seen that duplicitous side of Ramirez. Like, it's always been there. But also, like, the heartbreaking thing is, like, the complicated thing between him and Allegra. The fact is, he's willing to toss her aside. Like I said, even Cyrus being, like, hesitant to do that. The fact is, he seemed like he had reservations about it, but maybe it's because Cyrus was under the impression, much like Allegra, that Ramirez cared about her. But it's like, no, she was always a means to an end. She served her purpose, and now she's going to continue serving her purpose, just in a different way. So it's like, she's no longer of value to him in that regard. It's like, if she has to disappear, she has to disappear. It's like, that's shitty. So now Allegra's hearing that. It's like, well, what do you want to do? AD says that, and she's like, take everyone down. We see that Eve is making her deal with Cyrus. Everything gets signed away and everything. And then we see the lawyer and Eve making out against the blind. So I was like, oh, so has it always been a plan? Or was this like a last second change that Eve made? Because it's like, oh, well, you're no longer working for Jake. And I just screwed over Jake because Jake is most likely dead. So it's like, hey. But then Jake goes back home. He sees a bullet hole in his picture. I'm assuming that was Clyde. Which I'm wondering, does Clyde think... was there some part of him that believes like, Allegra and Jake are alive? Like, I'm wondering about that. I mean, not unless the whole plan was initially to kill Allegra. Maybe, I mean, I would assume it was for Jake too, but maybe, I don't know. All we see at the end is obviously we see Jake doing laundry. Then you have Gene dyeing his hair and stuff like that, but we also see him building a bomb. I'm like, okay, where is this going to go? And then Eve's on TV. It's like, oh, good old Gene, he was kidnapped. Gene, wherever you are, we'll find you. We'll bring you home and everything. And so it's like, okay. But now we still have to figure it out. Like, once again, was it Eve that Felicity had, called? My initial thought at first, once again, I brought this up last episode. I just had this feeling about AD, but I'm like, nah, it can't be AD. It would have to be Eve because she would benefit the most. Also, like, because I forgot to talk about it, Cyrus gave her the dirt necessary to take Tony out of the picture so that she can take over from Mayor. But you'd assume that had to deal with the Staghorns too, because I doubt they'd take that sitting down lightly. But to be fair, it's like they won't have much say in that. But I mean, maybe they will. That's going to be a whole thing. I think things are going to get very explosive next episode, especially with Gene working on explosives and stuff like that. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how that works out for him. Is he going to end up blowing himself up? Is he going to get arrested? I kind of get the feeling like he's probably going to explode. I just got an inkling. Have I seen the preview to the next episode? No. I just got that feeling just because him being a bomber and everything. But also, or it could just be a situation that Allegra ends up being the one to put him down, or even AD, maybe. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this ultimately takes us. Next week's episode is the season finale. It all comes together like this, so I'm so excited to see how this all ultimately ends up playing out. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time you meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good